Hi, thank you so much for becoming a resume reader for Momentum Education. I'm Christine Nguyen. I'm the student engagement intern here at Momentum. I also manage this resume program. Thank you so much for being here with us. I just want to take a couple moments and talk about what Momentum Education is. We are a nonprofit that helps Houston area low-income high school students get to and through post-secondary education, whether that be vocational school, technical school, or a four-year university or college degree. We are so happy to have you here. Just a couple things before I start this training. In your email, you should have also received a non-disclosure agreement as well as a background check. If after this training you could fill both out and send it back to us, that would be great. If you have filled out these two items in our essay reader program, please just email us back and let us know. There's no need to fill it out twice. But just so you know, please get these action items done after this training. So for expectation and logistics of all resume readers, because these students will be using these resumes on post-secondary application and scholarship programs that have deadlines and are time sensitive in nature, we ask that you do give feedback and edit these resumes within 5 days of receiving them. Upon receiving a resume, I will send it to your email and also send you a text to notify you that I have just sent you a resume. From that text, you will have 5 days to give feedback and edit these resumes fully. I will also try my very, very, very best to send you a reminder text at 3 days to remind you um, that you have 2 days left to turn in these resumes. Because we are using a mix of Microsoft Word and Google Docs, and in the process of reformatting these essays, we can lose comments on Microsoft Word or Google Docs. I ask that when you are finished, will send me the document in the reply email, as well as text me after you have finished editing a resume to notify me and let me know so that I can send it along with our tips and guidelines to the students so they can make all the changes they need to the resumes. Lastly, I ask that you communicate with us. If you can't edit a resume at the moment or you're no longer able to serve as a resume reader, I ask that you just let me know as soon as possible so that I can pass this resume on to the next available resume reader. So here at Momentum Education, we have two core values being integrity and students first. So in the interest of integrity and putting these students first, we ask that you do not rewrite any parts of these resumes for them. It would not be honest for them to turn in resumes that we had written for them as their own work, and it wouldn't be putting them first because it wouldn't help them in the long run. So we want to really emphasize that you cannot be rewriting these resumes for them. However, it is okay because of what a resume is to reformat things entirely. We ask that if a resume needs reformatting, which it likely might, that you do copy and paste exactly what the student wrote and just change fonts or placements into a format that you might be comfortable with or that Google Docs or Microsoft Word might already have. In this reformatting, I want to emphasize that you are not writing anything in or fixing anything for the students. You are just strictly changing fonts, bolding certain words, maybe unbolding words, using italics, or changing the placement with copy and paste strictly. We are not rewriting or writing anything in for the student. So in order to avoid rewriting, I will take this section to show you what leaving suggestions and comments looks like in both Google Docs or Microsoft Word. So here we are on a Word document in the case that you might get a resume from a student through Word. Here I have one of my sample resumes. It's a very simple resume. You can go ahead and at the beginning, if you don't think that the format of the resume is good, you can just copy and paste, change some fonts, plug it into a different format in a different order. Maybe you like to have things on the side in 2 rows. Everything is completely fine. But let's say you have copied and pasted all of the students' information into some sort of new resume format. The next thing I ask for you to do is to turn on track changes so that the students can see suggestions. So the way to do this is you would go and review, track changes, make sure all markup is showing. You can just click track changes by clicking right here. And in that, it will track all your changes. So let's say you think that this should be towards the end. I would put a bunch of tabs. bunch of spaces, and in that way the student can see the changes. Maybe they spelled Scoutmaster wrong and it's supposed to be spelled Masters, and you put an S in and it will track all your changes. You can also make corrections like that, and it tracks all the changes you make. In this way, you're not rewriting anything for the student. Again, I ask you use track changes only for things like tabs, formatting errors, things like spelling errors, or punctuation or grammar mistakes. So I asked for the all other comments that might be about word choice, about just the sentence writing or bullet point writing in general, that what you do here is that you highlight the bullet or any content that the student may have wrote and go up to review, new comment, and write it out as a comment. So maybe you say, please be more detailed about blah, 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 blah. And then you can leave comments that way. That way the student can choose to rewrite themselves and make these changes themselves. Right now, I'm going to go into Google Docs and talk about the changes in there. So right here, we see the same resume in Google Docs. It's the same resume that I have included in the guideline. Again, it's just a formatting suggestion. Upon looking closer, we can see that there are some changes that need to be made. So the first thing I would do is go on the top right-hand corner and select suggesting. In this way, it allows you to track changes. Again, I ask you to only use this for punctuation, grammar mistakes, obvious spelling errors that doesn't require you rewriting anything. For example, again, I would track the changes and it shows you all the changes so that the student can choose to change themselves. And then again, if you have any comments or want to help them rewrite something or ask them to rewrite something, again, explain it to them by highlighting it and click the little comments bubble, and then you can add a comment. This needs change. Please be more specific than I am. Of course, I'm only showing, and then click comment. And in that way, the student will be able to go back and work on this and see your comments and fix it for themselves. So lastly, I would just want to talk about what a high school resume should look like in case it's been a really long time. I've put together a couple of tips and guides that I'll go over in the next couple of slides here. I also want to emphasize that the goal of these resumes is to show that our students are well-rounded. They're trying to show off every part and all the activities these students have been involved in high school. And keep in mind that the audience in general are these scholarship program officers or post-secondary admission officers who are trying to decide whether this student is impressive enough to let into their program or receive these scholarships. So please just keep that in mind for relevancy for all of the bullet points or every single part of the resume in general. My first piece of advice is to be concise. The length of these resumes should really be only 1 to 2 pages. There's no need to show everything that the student has ever done. It really should focus on the depth and length of the commitment our students have had to these organizations in high school. There's really no need to show obscure awards from maybe the second grade that our students may have earned. Depth and length of commitment that the student has now is most important to show off. My next point being that formatting is extremely, extremely important. These admissions officers or scholarship program committees will scan and look over these resumes and judge it within the first 30 seconds. This means, unfortunately, regardless of what the content is, if it is unprofessionally or unaesthetically formatted, it will not impress the officers. So I ask in general, with formatting, you just be consistent with your fonts, your boldings, your italics. Keep at least 1-inch margins, and remember that white space is important to maintaining the aesthetics of the resume. To have clear headings and sections, as well as use clean serif fonts that are more professional. These fonts could be Times New Roman, Baskerville, Georgia, or Courier New. And lastly, the general sections of the resumes are listed here. I'm going to go over them, but I want to emphasize that these are just general outlines and suggestions. These students do not need to have all parts or sections in their resumes. These are just general outlines to follow. So at the top of the resume, I would start by including the student's information, including their name, appropriate email, phone number, address, and a website if they have an online presence or a portfolio of some sort. In the education section, I would include their high school, expected graduation, cumulative GPAs, weighted and unweighted, relevant courseworks like advanced classes or courseworks that might be showing off their journalism skills or computer science skills, courses that are extremely relevant to what the student wants to pursue, as well as test scores such as SAT or ACT. The next section, which is also completely optional, is research or intern experience if the student has any, as well as extracurricular activities in this if they are in a sports team, to include any varsity teams or captainships that they are involved in, or any officer positions or special roles in any clubs. Obviously, under the extracurricular activity section, sports and clubs aren't the limit, but those are things that are more likely to appear and to keep in mind. In the next section, I would include volunteer and community service. For professional experiences, include summer jobs or part-time jobs that they might hold. Under awards and honors, this can include things like certificates, competitions, performances, and projects that might have a lot of impact and show off the student's work. And lastly, also include skills such as foreign language, computer skills, artistic skills, and be sure to be specific on the mastery levels or mediums that the students might be proficient in, as well as hobbies that are relevant that might not show up anywhere else, like photography or fishing, or something that will show that the student is really well-rounded and is using their time wisely. Oh, oops. I think it's back now. I want to emphasize that having specific quantifiable contributions or roles is also key. So for example, a bullet point that I came up with was raise $1,250 for the Interact Club to provide its members buses to service events. This tells you exactly what the student did. They raised $1,250. It's tangible. We know how much the student contributed and we know what this is for. My next piece of advice is no objectives or references. The audience of these resumes are clearly the audience of these resumes and the audience of these resumes are clearly the scholarship programs or admissions officers reading them. The goal is pretty obvious, to show off that you're well-rounded, that you're trying to gain admission somewhere or money from the scholarship programs. So the objectives aren't really needed. References, usually for admissions offices, they call your counselor if they have any questions. The student's information is also listed at the top for them to ask if needed. So objectives and references aren't really needed and take up more space than it's worth. And lastly, I encourage you to encourage the student to be honest, and that sometimes less is more. Be aware of anything too unrealistic or too good to be true. So if a student puts down that they spend 30 hours a week in some activity and they have more than one activity, this might be a little bit of a stretch, and ask the student to maybe be a little more honest about their estimate. And then it's okay to take out information that does not help the student. Generally, for example, GPAs of 3.0s or higher are acceptable to put on these resumes because they help the student. But if the student has low test scores or low GPA or things that don't very show long commitments, I advise you to ask them to take them off. These resumes are supposed to show the best parts of the students in general. Lastly, I just want to wrap up and recap everything I've talked about. Again, there is a PDF guidebook that goes over everything I've gone over in this. Again, there's a background check and a non-disclosure agreement attached in the email. If you could please fill that out and send it back to me, or if you've already filled it out through our essay program, just send us an email letting us know. A couple things I do want to go over is there will be a GroupMe for all resume readers in the case that maybe your resume reader needs a second set of eyes or anything like that. GroupMe only shares your name and profile picture if you choose to have one. It does not share your email or phone number with anyone in the resume team. It's really just a way for you to talk to each other. And with us, you are not alone in this resume editing. I just want to emphasize that. You can opt out of the GroupMe at any time you want, but as soon as we get all your information, your background check, and your NDA, you will be added to a GroupMe in case you have any questions throughout this entire process. And lastly, please always feel free to contact me or Raj with any questions, suggestions, and concerns. This program is something I'm still building, and I'm completely and totally open and excited to be talking to you and working on this program with you. Thank you.